Smolder is coming to League of Legends very shortly. Thanks to Riot, I'll be able to show him to you today. Excuse the watermark, but that's how we got it. Smolder is the first actual dragon
So jumping over
mark,
walls
but
like
that's how
Zeri
we got it.
with E?
Smolder is the first actual dragon champion in League of Legends. As Riot says, Shyvana is just half dragon, and Aurelion Sol is a celestial being, and therefore not really a dragon. That being said, Smolder and Aurelion Sol, and therefore not
So the is that W that is making him go
really a
like
dragon.
kind of like an Urgot ability where
That
or is that I
being
can't
said,
tell, is that E?
Smolder and Aurelion Sol are rivals in game. Smolder is an AD caster marksman who is hyperscaling, short range and teamfight oriented. He excels at area of effect
Oh, I've heard that one before with Zeri. I've heard that one before.
damage as the game progresses. If you play against him, you should try to punish him in the early game, when he is still weak. Smolder is a cute creature AD carry. As usual in my videos, I'm gonna focus on his abilities and his gameplay, so let's dive straight into it. Smolder's passive is called Dragon Practice. Hitting champions with abilities and killing enemies with your Q grants Smolder a stack of passive. Stacks increase the damage of his basic abilities. Smolder's Q is called Super Scorcher Breath. Smolder belches flame at his enemies. This ability evolves according to your passive stacks. At 25 stacks, Q starts damaging all enemies surrounding the target. At 125 stacks, this ability also sends explosions beyond the target. They deal 75% of the ability's damage. At 225 stacks, it burns the target, dealing max health true damage over 3 seconds. Enemy champions that drop below a total health threshold while burning are killed instantly. Smolder.
I'm just gonna interrupt this really fast and ask a question. Do you guys think that infinite scaling champions are healthy for this game? I mean, I can list a few off that have been horribly unhealthy for this game. Zeri, Senna, fucking like Veigar, Asol, and a lot of times these champs aren't good anymore, right? They're like there've been times where those champs have been insanely good. Maybe Nasus is like the only example where the champ's never been like amazing, but all these champs like Veigar, Senna, Zeri, Asol, they've been amazing at one point, and they just got completely gutted because everyone hates playing against infinite scaling champions. Like, it's extremely frustrating to play as that champion sometimes. It's extremely frustrating to play. It's especially extremely frustrating to play against that champion. Like, think about playing against Kayle top. If Kayle was actually really, really strong with how ridiculous her scaling gets at like level 16 and plus, you would tear your fucking hair out playing against that champion. Luckily, it's not the case. She's not very good. So I'm already kind of like annoyed that they wanted to do this for 80 carries. I really didn't like it the last time they tried it. I don't know if I'm gonna like it this time.
Smolder lets out an adorable flaming sneeze, damaging and slowing enemies hit. Hitting enemies causes an additional explosion. Smolder's E is called Flap Flap Flap. Smolder takes flight, gaining movement speed.
Okay, this is the one that goes over walls, right?
1.25 seconds. While flying, Smolder attacks the lowest health enemy.
Okay.
And finally his ult. Smolder's R is called Mom. Smolder's mom breathes fire from above, dealing extra damage and slowing enemies in the center of her fire. If this ability hits Smolder, he is also healed.
Wait,
so let's have a look at
what? Hold on.
If this ability hits Smolder, he is also healed.
Well, that sounds insanely strong in 2v2.
Of his gameplay clips. As I already said, Smolder is a scaling caster marksman. He relies on his abilities as his primary damage output. So early game, it seems like you mostly wanna focus on farming your stacks. In the clips we can see that they play Smolder with press the attack as a keystone. As for the items, they seem to focus on AD crit caster build with Navori, Essence River and Collector. Most of Smolder's damage is physical, although he does a bit of magic damage on his E or Q. His E also allows him to go through the walls. What's also really important is that, as we can see here, Smolder's ultimate can crit. So his mom seems to be pretty powerful. Fruit build definitely seems like the way to go. I like that gameplay wise, Smolder is gonna be a unique champion. League doesn't really have
Okay, I like that it's unique in that sense. I do agree. Like that is pretty cool. The fact that he's a caster, and he's like
many
shorter
caster
range.
marksmen, and his kit seems fairly straightforward. Not some other 200 years craziness like we had with Aphelios, for example. I'm looking forward to play him on the PB once he is there. Let me know
So I mean, like the biggest question that I have
what
is
for example.
what is his range, right? Like range is everything. And from what I can tell from this clip exactly, it does seem like his range is about 525, between 525 to 575. Could be 550, could be 525. I don't think it's quite as short as Sivir. Like looking at the range right here, it doesn't look as short as Sivir, so that's why I said 525. Sivir's is 500. I don't think it's 575 either because that would be Varus. Oh shit, one sec. I am playing AD carry in my game. My bad. That was in the middle. His range is gonna mean everything to, you know, how annoying he is. Like I said though, guys, like infinite scaling champions, for me, for my like general enjoyment of the game, and I think for the most part, like for like what regular people enjoy, it's fun to play as an infinite scaling guy until Riot nerfs your champion, and then you feel like you bought fucking kneecapped in just so you could infinite scale, right? It's like they tick the box, like, yep, you get to infinite scale, but like your champion just like overall sucks. That's usually what happens to these champions that can do that. Like, you know, for example, Nasus. I think Veigar has been in kind of a bad spot for a long time. What are some other examples? Like Kayle. Kayle doesn't infinite scale, but she's like supposed to be that super scaler that like becomes god at level 16, and they just kneecap the shit out of her. Syndra doesn't have the same thing. Syndra actually has like a cap, and I would not say that Syndra is like omega broken late game the same way that these other champs are. Yeah, Cho'Gath, you know, he's okay actually. I think Cho'Gath might be one of the more like well balanced ones, to be honest. I think Cho'Gath is very fair, and I don't think he's bad. I don't think he's amazing. He's just kind of decent. Let's just see how it goes. Let's just see how it goes. I just wish, you know, he wasn't that way. Where he's it's like, okay, here's the design philosophy. We make him infinite scaling, and we make him completely busted late game, but like his early game is going to be where he's like weak as fuck. We all know how that went with Zeri, and I think for specifically for AD carries, guys, like I'm just like speaking from experience, specifically for AD carries, like you're either playing like some lane bully bullshit like Poke Varus or Lucian Nami or Jhin or like Kalista with Ashe support, or you're playing some super scaling shit. Like you're playing AP, Kai'Sa, Zeri, Sivir, you know, Yuumi. You're playing like the super scaling stuff. So he's probably gonna be decent is what I'm saying, because like that already like fits in line with like some of the stuff that people already like to play. For example, you know, last year it was Jinx Aphelios meta. And one side, Aphelios is an incredible lane bully. He scales pretty decently too. No, he's not too shabby late game. But, you know, then there's like Jinx. Like, ooh, if Jinx gets the 3 items, just GG. Can't win. That's like kind of always been the bot lane meta. And then, yeah, like last year, obviously there was like Lucian, Nami, and Zeri Yuumi being like very, very strong for a really long time. Once again, the same classical thing. Like Lucian, Nami, lane bully, Zeri Yuumi, infinite scaling. What the fuck? 200 damage?